we started talking about the reasons and perhaps the philosophy behind the movement of Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and what are the unique characters of his move. What makes it so special, so unique, in a sense that it continues to grow day by day, year by year. As you all know, the minute you look out to the statistics and you look around the world, you see that this movement of Ashura is affecting more people every day and every year. If you look at even the site of Wikipedia, if you search the term, the most peaceful gathering, religious gathering around the world, you see 9 out of 10 of them, it's the March of Arba'in, which is happening not all, right? So in terms of the population, in terms of how many people actually get together for one common cause, and all of it happens in a peaceful manner, you find this March of Arba'in, which itself shows how important is this ziyarat of Arba'in, and what does it do to the people, that it continues to grow, as I mentioned, every year, right? So how can we be part of it? How can we benefit from this a little bit more? How can we get closer to those who actually will be called the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? And we talked about this a little briefly yesterday. The terms in which Imam al-Hussein uses for his companion is one of a kind. He calls them those unique, one-of-a-kind, loyal companions, where the history is not to see some people or people resemblance or alike them anymore, right? So are there specific characters in the companions of Imam al-Hussein in which we can actually deduct that from the words of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and then we can make a list, we can make a checklist for ourselves. See, okay, so these are the characters of the companions of Imam al-Hussein, right? How much of these characters do I have in myself? Can I work on them? Can I make sure that I strengthen those characters in myself and try to get closer and closer and closer to our Mawla and to our Imam Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. So this was the main theme of the discussions that inshallah, if Allah gives us the tawfiq, we'll try to go over it in the upcoming nights as well. Now we started from the roots. We said if you want to actually understand what was happening in the tragedy of Karbala, we have to study a lot more in terms of the roots and the history of this event. Because Karbala is not something that we can say, okay, it was only a dispute between Yazid and Imam al-Hussein, and that led to a normal war or battle, right? Which we call it the tragedy of Karbala and all the stuff that happened. Now we say everything starts with this sense of mentality, this sense of perspective, right? This sense of viewing the world in a different way. And I started talking about this when we went back to the time of the Holy Prophet of Islam as well, right? The tragedy of Karbala is something that we say it actually, the roots of it was ignited at the time of the Holy Prophet. How did it happen? I gave you a couple of different examples. I tried to talk about that a little bit more tonight, inshallah. So we talked about 2 different perspectives. We said in the Shia school of thought, when we talk about the prophecy, when we talk about the prophethood, and we talk about the topic of imamate, we say there is absolutely no difference in terms of the knowledge in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the prophet with the actions that we see from the messenger of Allah. Now this perspective is for the Shia school of thought. In other school of thought, in other school of beliefs, they actually make a differentiation between the two. They say the topic of revelation to the messenger of Allah is one topic. The topic of the acts and deeds and a'mal of the messenger of Allah is the second topic. Meaning that they give this sense of independence to the messenger of Allah in terms of choosing what he actually does, right? So many examples at the time of the Holy Prophet himself happened, right? In which a lot of people raised this question, that what you are telling me, is it something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to you, O Rasulullah, or is it something that you are telling us from yourself, right? And I mentioned this is perhaps one of the worst sort of reasoning as we can speak of. It doesn't seem like that, but inshallah we'll try to scrutinize it a little bit more. So basically what happens when we make a differentiation between revelation and the deeds of the Rasulullah, right? As I mentioned, we see Rasulullah separated from the revelation. That means every single act that we get from Rasulullah, then it becomes a subject to questioning, right? So everything that he does, we can actually raise the same question on it. That whatever he does, is it something based on the revelation of Allah, or is it something based on, for example, Rasulullah's thinking? In the Shia school of thought, we say no. Every single thing that Rasulullah does, it goes according to the revelation. As if like Rasulullah does not make any step, right? Does not even think of anything except through what is haqq, through what is real, through what has been revealed to him. The meaning of revelation is what has been revealed to the person, right? And that's why a lot of us, we do not have access to the topic of revelation. Because revelation is that truth of knowledge, is that level of knowledge that there has no flaws in it, right? No matter how hard we study in a specific major, right? We all know that we can only understand a portion of the reality. We can understand only so much about the specific thing that we're studying. If you study bio, if you study IT, if you study engineering, if you study architecture, right? Doesn't matter what field we're in. No matter how much we study, you get your doctorate, you get your postdoctorate, you continue your study for 20, 30 years in your specific field, right? No matter how, in details we go, there's always more to it. Meaning that we may come up with, even new, hypotheses and theses, right? In which it actually, reforms the whole industry. But we say no matter how much we learn, still it's a portion of the true reality about that specific subject. Now, let alone if you put all the subjects of the universe together and say about the entire universe, right? That's how great the knowledge is, and it continues to grow, right? But when we talk about Rasulullah, right? When we talk about the knowledge in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to them and granted them, this knowledge, right, which is a different type of knowledge as well, it has absolutely no flaws in it. Meaning what they see is like multiple aspects of the very same subject. And not only for their given time, but they see every single time when that specific thing happens. Example of that one, we can see it in a lot of actions of our imams and the Holy Prophet as well, right? So naturally, right, it creates a room for others, for companions, for those who are close, to raise this question, that how come Rasulullah did this on such a given circumstance when we are, if we are put in the same situation, we think otherwise, right? I'll give you one simple example. The first, the peace treaty that Rasulullah had with the Kafirs of Mecca, right? As you all know, the first year they went for Umrah, right? They went and they went on the stage of Ihram, in which you basically do specific rituals, and through these rituals, you're not allowed to do specific acts. Those who have gone to Hajj, they know, right? So they go for Umrah, and you all know the story. What happens? The Quraysh, they come out and they say, no, you cannot enter the city of Mecca, right? They actually decide to settle down for a peace treaty between each other with this condition that Muslims will not enter the city of Mecca on that year, right? And they will be free to do their Umrah the very next year. So far, no problem, right? But now the problem, where the problem comes into play? When the Muslims realize that, oh, we are at the stage of Ihram, right? At the stage of Ihram, the only way you can get out of the stage of Ihram is when you finish the Amal, right? You have to do all the Amal of Hajj, right? Or the Umrah, in order to come out of the stage of Ihram, and everything else becomes halal for you, right? So now what do? We have the peace treaty. We cannot enter the city of Mecca. We cannot do our tawaf. We cannot do our salatul tawaf. We cannot do Sa'i and Marwa, right? We cannot run between the Sa'i and Marwa. We cannot do any of this stuff. How can we come out of the stage of Ihram? So here comes the question, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he tells all the Muslim, right, outside of city of Mecca. He says right here outside of the city of Mecca, go ahead and slaughter your qurbani, right? And go ahead and shave your head and come out of the stage of Ihram. Exit from the stage of Ihram. Immediately when the Rasulullah mentions this ruling, right, it doesn't make sense, for example, to me who was like a normal companion who perhaps didn't know much, right? Immediately the objections were raised. That, oh Rasulullah, how come we can come out of a stage of Ihram when we have not even entered the city of Mecca, right? How can we come out of the stage of Ihram when we haven't even gone through the first tawaf, around the Kaaba, right? So this question comes up. It's like, oh Rasulullah, is what you said is something that Allah has revealed to you, or is it something that you are saying, right? It started that criticism in a sense. It started that doubt in the terms of the prophethood and the prophecy of Rasulullah, right? Another example I will give you, right? The very similar situation happened. At the time of Rasulullah, there were a lot of munafiqeen, the hypocrites, who were living in Medina as well. One of them who was well known as being a munafiq, right? Now what happened, Rasulullah used to actually pay him a lot of visits, right? Despite of him being a munafiq, a hypocrite, Rasulullah used to go to him constantly, right? He was always trying to like talk to him, reason with him, trying to show him the right path, right? But for whatever reason, he did not like, actually listen to the Rasulullah in any of those given times. Towards the end of his life, he makes a will, right? And he asks Rasulullah, and he tells him, "Oh Rasulullah, despite of me not believing in you, but I would like to ask you for one thing. I would like to ask you to actually take care of my burial ceremony. So once I die, I want you to come and do my ghusl and kafan, and I want you to pray the salatul mayyit on me," right? So now everybody knows that he's a hypocrite. Everybody knows that he's a munafiq, right? But now he had made this will, or this his last wish on his will to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what happens? He passes away, right? And Rasulullah, based on the will that he had and the request that he had, he goes and he participates in his the burial ceremony. He does teaches everybody how to do the ghusl and kafan on him, right? He makes sure that everything goes accordingly, and he offers the salatul mayyit as well. Again, the minute this happens, the objections come. It's like, "Oh Rasulullah, he's a munafiq. You know that he has gone against a lot of major principles of Islam. So why do you go and you do salatul mayyit on such a person?" And again, the very same question. Is something that you do, is something that you say, is something that Allah has revealed to you, or is it something that is coming out from yourself, right? So this is two examples. Now put them next to each other, we find this base of an argument. We find this sort of like an angle of a perspective, right? As I mentioned, to differentiate between Rasulullah and the topic of revelation. As if we see the Quran something, and we see Rasulullah something completely different. Versus in the Shia school of thought, what do we say? We say Rasulullah, what the words he says, is a live version of what has been revealed to us in the book of Quran. We have the hadith of Saqalain, two weighty things, right? In which that Rasulullah says these two weighty things will not separate from each other. Until when? Until all the way to the day of judgment. Meaning that these two weighty things, right? They're as if like they make each other complete. One is written, one is a live version. One is perhaps you can say the generalities, right? One comes and talks about the details based on the circumstance in which we are put into. A lot of problems we see in the Islamic nations today, where the problems come from. We have the book of Quran, and everybody uses different quotes from the book of Quran, right? But then they have misinterpretation, right? Because when we talk about revelation, when we talk about this true knowledge, which doesn't have any flaws in it, right? Who is the most loyal and who is the most worthy of actually understanding the book of Quran as well? We say it has to be someone who's actually at the same level of the Quran. Otherwise, what's going to happen, right? Imagine if you pick up a book, and you're barely entering, the first grade, K1, right? And then they give you this very advanced book in terms of biology, right? How much of that are you going to understand? You probably cannot finish even the first page, right? So now we have the book of Quran, the book which it's a miracle itself, even today, right? People cannot bring something like it, right? I just make a parenthesis here. In translation, so many groups, so many people, so many years they have spent it on translating the Quran. For example, from Arabic to English to Farsi to Urdu, it doesn't matter what language. And you can ask them, right? As long as they are fair. They say even translating the words of the Quran to another language is impossible, right? Why? Because no matter what do we say, it has so many aspects in different ayahs of the Quran that we cannot carry through the same meaning in picking out the words and vocabulary from the second language. So we always have to we have to pick one aspect of it, and then we have to carry through the meaning through that lexical term. But we cannot have that multi and aspect, dimension of the words in which it has used in the Quran. And that's the beauty of the Quran. Even translating it's never complete, 100% complete, right? That's in parentheses. So when we talk about the Quran and we talk about the understanding of the Quran, we need someone who is at least at the same level of the Quran. Otherwise, whatever they understand, it will be subjected to question. Because, as I mentioned, we're talking about revelation. Revelation, it can only be understood by those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them that permission to understand the revelation, right? If we are not involved in that divine knowledge, right? No matter how much we study, no matter how much we try, we do not get that 100% understanding of the Quran, right? And where that becomes a problem, when we start like making decision based on our own understanding of the Quran or even Hadith, right? How does it make a problem? Because a lot of times they make these questions, like whenever you recite the Quran, whenever you recite the Hadith, make sure that what you understand from the Quran and the Hadith is something that the Quran and the Hadith is telling you. It's not something that you already know and you want to put that and impose that on the ayahs of the Quran or the Hadith of the Ma'soom. It's a very minor difference, but in the long run, it makes major problems in terms of religion, right? As if we're trying to understand what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us or is telling us, is recommending to us, versus what I have in mind already, and I try to find a reason for it within the book and the ahadith, right? So this mentality existed from the early time of Islam, and it continued and it grew, and we have it even today as we speak of. And perhaps a lot of us may have it as well, speaker included, right? In a lot of our decision-making, daily time, routine, everyday decision makings, we probably come out to the very same concept. What I decide to do, to go on the left or right, to do this or that, to choose this topic or that topic, go to this major or that major, right? Hang out with this people or those people, right? A lot of normal, everyday decision makings that we have, we always have to put this question on it. Is this something that I'm doing for the sake of Allah? Something that is going to get me closer to Allah? Something that is going to make me more of a believer, more of a faithful person? Or is it something that's just going to benefit me in the long run, right? In terms of what I desire, right? And it becomes very thorough. Our desires versus what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually has asked us to do. Sometimes they go accordingly, right? Sometimes they go completely in contradiction, but sometimes, or the most of the times, is in the gray area in which we cannot differentiate between the two. That's why we come back for the religious teachings, right? So a little by little, this gray area becomes black and white for us. We'll be able to differentiate between haqq and batil more and more, right? It's not like to say that everybody by itself automatically is able to differentiate between haqq and batil. To some extent, yes, right? But we have to work on it. We have to nurture it. We have to manage it, and we have to let it grow, right? Because it becomes more thorough, it becomes more difficult, right? And one decision can change the entire future and fate of the person, right? I mentioned a couple different examples in the companions of Abu Abdullah Hussein. I mentioned this Joan, the servant of Abu Zar, right? And I mentioned the Abdullah ibn Zahaq, who was actually a fighter alongside of Imam al-Hussein till the very last minute. But towards the very last minute, he decided to get up and basically leave Imam al-Hussein and the land of Karbala, right? And he actually had made a plan for his escape as well, right? He had hidden his horse in one of the tents, making sure he had this mean of getting away at the very last minute. So all these decision makings goes back to how we actually see the reality of this world. And we know when it comes to reality, every single person has their own perspective, right? And every single person is ready to defend whatever their perspective is. Can you show me one person that says, that you start talking with them and it says, okay, what do you think about the creation? What do you think about the world? What do you think about the hereafter? They give you all of these doctrines and all of these different theological discussions, right? But you cannot find one person who's going to say, whatever I say, it may be actually wrong. Everybody's think that whatever they do, whatever they believe in, whatever custom they have, it's the number one and the best custom, best tradition, best knowledge, best divine book of all time, right? You look at the Muslims, you look at Christians, you look at Jewish, you look at even non-believers, right? Everybody believes whatever they do, it's the best thing to do, right? And this is actually a part of a hadith, right? It's a very interesting hadith, right? It says that you cannot find a single group in which, in that group, when you take out the scholars from that group, those scholars, agree on the same specific thing, right? You cannot find that group. You cannot. It doesn't matter how big of the group is. You take 1 million of people, maybe 100,000 of people. Of those are scholars. Among those 100,000 of scholars, you cannot find a common word between all of them, right? So this is naturally. When it's naturally, that means what? That means we have to always look for a higher source in which we can put our reliance on, right? Otherwise, what's going to happen? Basically, what we're doing, we're just going based on our own experiences, based on our own knowledge, based on our own teachings, versus, you know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to actually tell us, right? Based on what the teachings of the Quran is, and based on what the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt is, right? So this question usually gets raised. It's like the topic of Muharram, the topic of Arba'in, right? How does that fall within this topic of unity, right? How is that going to bring the Muslims, not only Muslims, Muslims and non-Muslims together, right? This topic of Arba'in, how can it be only, how come it's not only for the time of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Why do we have to go and do the March of Arba'in 1400 years after the actual tragedy had actually happened, right? Why do we come and attend the Majlis of Imam al-Hussein? What is so special, what is so unique about the Majlis of Imam al-Hussein that we continue to come and sit down in the Majlis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein after 1400 years, right? Very simple answer. The needs of the human is always the very same needs. It does not change, right? Now, in terms of the needs of the humanity, we have this spiritual needs as well, right? I'm not going to talk about the physical and the materialistic needs. I'm going to talk about the spiritual needs as well, right? The spiritual needs is when it needs the most of the guidance. Why? Because we cannot test the spirituality with the means that we have in this world, right? We cannot test the spirituality with science. That's just common sense, right? We cannot test the spirituality within the laboratories, right? So that means we do not have the mean actually in order to understand and test what the spirituality means. This topic of death and resurrection, right? What's going to happen after we die? You know how many people, I think millions and millions and millions of people, right? They've been trying to resolve this topic of what happens after a person actually dies. Or they were trying to prevent dying, but none of them were successful. Taken from the world powers, the leaders, the kings, and take it from the pharaoh all the way to different dynasties that we have. Every single person who had come to this world, they had this question with them, right? What happens after we die, right? So this gives that that sense of perspective to the person. Why do I say all of this? Again, we go back to the words of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Remember, what's the topic? We say there is no difference between, for example, Rasulullah and the book of Quran. When we look at the book of the Quran, when we look at the verses and the ayahs of the Quran, we find the perfect and live example of those in the personality and character of Rasulullah, right? And then we find the very same examples and the very same details in the personality and characters of our imams, in which we call them the custodian of religion, right? So now when we look at the words of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam, how does he describe the world? How does he describe the objective, the purpose that we have on this world? And what's his view towards living on this world, right? We see it in completely contradictory to all the people in which, or most of the people in which they were living at the time of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. I raised the question yesterday, was when Imam al-Hussein made his move, right? At the beginning, close to 2,000 people, they were accompanying Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, right? Up to where? Up to when the news of the shahadat of Muslim ibn Aqil reached Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, right? So at that time, Imam al-Hussein turned around and he gave this sermon to all of those who were following him. And he told them about the shahada and the martyrdom of Muslim ibn Aqil. And he told them that this journey that we're going through, it's not a normal journey. It's a one-way journey. There is no coming back, right? And then he gives them this freedom of choice. He says, okay, you are free to choose. If you want to accompany me, Bismillah. If you want to leave, here's your chance. And sadly, we have it in the reports that people started scattering around, started leaving Abu Abdullah al-Hussein from left and right in groups. Not individually, but in groups, right? So that 2,000 people, some closer to 2,000 people, they were all cut down to about 200 people, to about 150 people, right? And a lot of people, as we know, they actually joined Abu Abdullah al-Hussein as he was getting closer and closer to the Karbala, when he actually got surrounded in the lands of Karbala, right? So this shows, again, it goes back to what? To that perspective. So when the 2,000 people, when they're accompanying Imam, what's going on in their mind that when they hear the news of martyrdom of Muslim ibn Aqil, they all just say, okay, this is it, I'm not going to continue anymore, right? As they say, a lot of them, they were thinking that, oh, it's the grandson of Rasulullah, right? So he has this popularity among the people. If he's going to Kufa, he's going to find, he's going to find some power, so once he becomes powerful, recite the salawat. So some were thinking that, okay, he's going to become this powerful, like, ruler of Kufa, right? Powerful person in charge. The more I get closer to him, the more I will benefit from, right? He's going to become the governor, but he needs people to help him. I will be those help. And through that, I will gain some benefits. A lot of people, they were saying, no, there will be no war, right? There will be no battle. It's the grandson of Rasulullah, so we're just going to accompany him and we'll see what comes up for us, right? The perspective comes where? What's in it for me? Versus when we look at the companions of Imam Hussein, despite of their background, and that's where the interesting part comes in. Despite of their background, right? Not all of them were like, extremely religious and pious at that time, right? For example, even some of them, they did not believe in the imamat, right? When we look at the companion of Imam Hussein, Zuhair, they call them Uthmani. Uthmani is like those who actually believe in the Khilafat of Uthman, and they were talking about like, getting the revenge from those who actually killed Uthman, right? So that was his belief. But all of a sudden, he changes, and he changes so much that on the night before Ashura, when Imam Hussein removes the bay'at from all the companions, the very first person who stands up and shows and expresses the loyalty is Hazrat Abul Fazl Abbas, right? The second person who stands up is the very same Zuhair. So how does he change in such a quick time, right? And then on the day of Ashura, it's interesting how he enters the battle and how he sacrifices himself, how he says farewell to Imam Hussein. When we take a look at all of these pieces and we put them together, it's just fascinating. What makes such a big difference in a person who did not believe in the topic of imamat in such a short time that he becomes completely 100% loyal and obedience of Imam Hussein in such a short given time, right? Meaning that there's always a chance. That's number one. Never lose that hope. There's always chance as long as, and that's what we say the meaning of life is. We are living to make those good choices. And we are living to make the good choices the better choices. And we are living to make those better choices the best choices that we can do in our given time, right? And that's why we call it the tawfiq. Coming to the masjid of Abu Abdullah Hussein, we say it's a tawfiq. It's not a chance. It's not that you were just walking by and then somebody said, hey, let's go to Saba, and says, okay, let's go. No. You say all of this has been provisioned for you, right? They say every single word, every single zikr you say, all of them has this provisioning within it. On the Laylatul Qadr, what do we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We ask him for all his ni'mah, all his blessings and all this stuff. But usually when we pray for blessings and ni'mah, what do we think of in terms of a good job, a good salary, a good co-workers, a good boss, a good car, and all this stuff, right? A good cell phone. It depends on the person. And I mentioned the examples yesterday as well. A lot of people who actually joined the army of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and Umar Assad, they were not asking for much. It shows that how much are they actually thinking. They were asking for 2 hands full of wheat and date, right? I will join you, O Umar Assad. I will fight against the grandson of Rasulullah if you give me 2 hands full of wheat or date, right? For only this much. Some people, they want more, they ask for more stuff. Some people, they want less. They're content in that sense, right? So when it comes to ourselves, we have to take a look at this one as well. What's our perspective? Do we look at the religion as something that it has to benefit us in a way that we think is beneficial for us? Or no, we take a look at the religion of something that has come to make us grow and become perfect in a sense, right? To move this or walk along this path of perfection, right? As we all know, the religion is something that has come to teach us how to live, to teach us how to grow, to teach us how to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why do we want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that perfect of all the perfections in which we talk about. He is that one independent perfection in which it contains all of the perfections within it, right? The more you get closer to the source, the more of those benefits and those bounties and blessings will actually be bestowed upon you, right? But the smart part is right here. It's like, don't look at it in terms of an equation of what do I get and what do I lose when I come to practicing of religion. No, look at it this way, that no matter what we do, it has absolutely no benefits for the Creator. Whatever we do, it has actually been put there and actually given to us to make us grow a little bit more, right? So this topic of expecting something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we do something good, it just goes out of the window, right? If I'm a good Muslim, inshallah, Allah gives us the tawfiq to be true Muslims, right? if I'm a good true Muslim for a week, for 2 weeks, for the whole month of Ramadan, for the whole month of Muharram and Arba'in, right? I do everything accordingly. I do my salats, I do my psalm, I do my, all the respects of the parents and respects to the community member. I do everything accordingly, right? At the end of these 2 months, right? If I find myself at the stage of expecting something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in return, when we look at the ulama of akhlaq, they say that's a big sign of you're actually walking or be going through the troubles, right? This sense of expectation is something that we call it, we talk about it quite a bit in terms of religious teachings. The second we start feeling this expectation is when we have to raise that question mark. It's like, what's going wrong, right? No matter what we do, again, doesn't give us this right to actually expect something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because we say everything we do, right, first of all, doesn't matter which act we do, right? Even this chance of committing that act has been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The knowledge in which we choose that act has been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The time and the circumstance in which we actually do a specific act has been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as if He has given us everything that we need, and He has given us this free will, and all we do is to choose between good and bad. So this choosing, how is it going to bring this expectation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving even more? As if like we have been borrowing something to do something, right? And then we expect the owner to actually give us more for borrowing his stuff and borrowing his money and borrowing his capital to accomplish something that we like, right? So this topic of expecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to basically, in a simple word, listen to what we say, it goes out of the picture. And this is one of the major questions they ask. It's like, why this happened? I did everything perfectly. How come I didn't get that job? Why this happened? I did everything perfectly, but I couldn't get to that specific school, right? I couldn't get the person that I wanted to get married with, right? And I did everything perfectly. Is there like, and then they start questioning, right? No, we say this all goes aside because the whole purpose is the different thing. The purpose of religion is to make us grow, is to make us walk the path of perfection. This path of perfection, sometimes it comes in contrary to what we may actually think and what we actually like and what we actually prefer in living in this dunya. And that's naturally. That's not wrong. That's naturally. It happens to everybody, right? The only part to it is that we have to make sure when that time comes, we'll be able to understand, we'll be able to pass through it, not to get stuck within it, right? If something happened, right, despite of that, move on. You're in it for a greater purpose, right? When we look at, for example, Hazrat Ali and Akbar, right? On the way when the caravan was going towards Karbala, right? As you all know, in one of the stages, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he takes a very short nap, right? For like a couple of minutes. When he wakes up, as he's riding on the horse, right? He basically nods for like a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes. When he wakes up, he uses the word of Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, right? Hazrat Ali Akbar goes to him immediately, right? It shows like how concerned he was about his father. He goes to him immediately and he says, "Oh father, I hear you saying the word of Inna lillah." And this is the word we use when somebody passes away, right? What happened? Then the Abu Abdullah Hussein starts telling him that I had a vision of Rasulullah, and he told me, and I had this vision of this the angel who was actually telling us that the way you are going, there is no return to it. Basically giving us the news of the end of this journey, right? So here, Hazrat Ali Akbar raises this very interesting statement. He says, aren't we on the path of haqq? Aren't we on the path of truth? Aren't we on the correct path? So if we are on the correct path, what does it matter, right? At what stage actually we end this correct path, right? As long as we make sure that we are within the boundaries of this sirat al-mustaqim, right? The rest is not important. What is important to make sure that we actually follow these boundaries. We do not go out of the bound, right? If you go out of the bound, that's when we have to be very careful. But once we are within the boundaries of the sirat al-mustaqim, right? They say you actually even have to extend your worth and extend your works and extend your efforts even more. Try to strive for it the hardest as possible, right? Because we have limited time, right? But as long as it is within the boundaries of this, right path, right? So this shows that mentality. So let's go back to our topic, making separation between revelation, the topic of the prophethood, and the topic of imamat, right? So the same mentality, take it from the time of Rasulullah, right? bring it to the time of Khulafa, bring it to the time of Muawiyah, and then now bring it to the time of Yazid, right? Now, of course, there's a difference between people who were in Medina, in Mecca, in Kufa of that time, and the people who were in Damascus or Sham, right? And I talked about that briefly as well, right? So the people in Mecca and Medina, at least they had more of a contact with the Ahlul Bayt, right? They knew him to some extent, but as I explained yesterday, they didn't know them as we know perhaps today, right? They only looked at him as this pious people from the community, right? What was the claim? What was the reason for it? A lot of people, they would not even raise question from Abu Abdullah Hussein. They would not ask question, right? Or they would not ask question from Imam Zain al-Abidin. They would go to different scholars. They would not go and ask the Ahlul Bayt, right? This was one of the signs for it. Now, when we talk about Sham, when we go back to Sham, right, and when we go back to the people of Sham, this equation becomes a lot more severe and a lot more difficult. Why? Because now you have a city named Sham in which Muawiyah has been ruling over it for more than 20 years, right? And he has propagated and he has done so many things in order to actually make a separation between this topic of revelation and the personality of Rasulullah and the personalities of the Ahlul Bayt, right? To the point that they were actually cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen on top of the member, right? And they were cursing Amir al-Mu'mineen when they had the Friday prayer. Now, what do we know about the people of Sham? Let me give you one story. It's very interesting. After the Battle of Siffin, right? One of the people from Kufa, he goes to Sham for doing a business trade, right? When he enters the city of Sham, he goes with a camel, right? As he enters the city of Sham, immediately when he enters the city of Sham, one of the people of Sham, he spots him, he looks at the camel and he says, "That's my camel," right? He says, "What do you mean it's your camel?" He says, "I lost that camel in the Battle of Siffin and I see that you are riding it." The guy from Kufa says, "No, this is my camel, I purchased it, this is for example, the document, the certificate." Those times they didn't have a certificate, right? So the argument, rises, right? So the guy from Sham, he goes and he brings 50 witnesses. All of them testify that, oh, this camel belongs to this guy from Sham. And the guy from Kufa, well, he's a stranger. He doesn't have any witnesses. He's like, he cannot counter the argument. So what does he do? He says, okay, let's go to the religious authority. Unfortunately, religious authority of that time was Muawiyah. So they go to the court of Muawiyah. So there is Muawiyah sitting. He wants to make a ruling. He says, okay, what's the case? The case is a fight between who does his camel belong to. This guy says it's for him. This guy says for him. Okay, bring out the witnesses. It's like, okay, this guy has 50 witnesses. They all say this camel belongs to him. He looks at the Kufi guy. He's like, okay, where are your witnesses? He says, well, I'm a stranger here. I have no witnesses to actually prove that this camel is mine, right? So it's my word against his word plus 50 witnesses. Muawiyah looks at him and says, well, 50 witnesses is not something that I can overlook, right? So he orders for the camel to be given to the person from Sham, right? So they are happy, they're celebrating. He's like, yeah, we got our camel back. The Kufi guy, he approaches Muawiyah. He says, can I have a word with you? He's like, yes, what happened? It's like, he constantly telling me that this camel belongs to him, right? And he's using the word jamal, or he's using the word naqa. We have two terms for camel in Arabic. They use jamal for the male camel. They use naqa for female camel, right? He constantly saying that this naqa is mine. This she camel is mine. And then he tells Muawiyah, it's like, this is a jamal. This is a he camel. This is a male camel. And then you, the person in charge of the religious affairs, you accept the witnesses of 50 people who cannot make the difference between a male camel and a female camel. Muawiyah looks at him and says, oh, something went wrong. He tells him, be quiet, don't say anything. He tells everybody, okay, the court is finished, the sentence has been ruled out, I made the verdict, so go on and be happy. Once they leave, he asks him again, he tells them, okay, come by again. He says, okay, how much for the naga? How much for the jamal, right? How much for this camel? He says this amount of money. He says, okay, here's twice of that money. So he bribes him, basically. He gives him twice of that money, he gives it to him, and then he gives him a lot of these freebies and a lot of these goodies in a sense, just to make sure that he's content. And he basically apologizes for his act, right? Then at the end, he turns around and he tells them, go back to the city of Kufa, say my salam to Amir al-Mu'mineen, or he doesn't use the Amir, he says, say my salam to Ali, right? And tell him that I came to your battle, I came to fight with you, with thousands of people who cannot tell the difference between the male camel and the female camel, right? You see the mentality? So in that era, we're talking about, who is the imam, right? When we have some basic arguments in which people cannot differentiate, now we want to talk about the topic of imam. So of course, when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein wants to make this call, wants to make this move, there's absolutely no way of them being able to understand and grasp this idea of that, oh, maybe the imam of their time is saying something which is truth, and the Khalif of the time is saying something that is batil. And that was happening at the time of Yazid, right? Because we see a lot of uprising, or a lot of move against Yazid after the tragedy of Karbala. How come none of them happened before the tragedy of Karbala, right? And I mentioned a lot of good companions, right? Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he made the same rise from the Mecca, close to 10,000 people, right? They actually sworn their life to protect him against the very same Khilafat of Yazid. It's interesting, how does Abdullah ibn Zubayr actually makes his rise? Is when he actually gets up and he goes to the palace of Yazid, and he finds him drinking there out in the public. Then he says, oh, this is a big no. We cannot take this as the Khalif of the Muslims, right? And he returns and he does his thing, right? Whereas this is like one of the worst things that actually can happen to the Islamic nation. When someone such as Abu Abdullah Hussein calls people, right, to come and gather around and to get united against this Khalif in which you have actually selected to be your own Khalif, you paid your allegiance to him, right? Because all of these different characteristics in which Imam al-Hussein lists, right? Because the major principle of religion of Islam is going to be destroyed, nobody stands up and nobody shows their support. But once they go and they see it for themselves, then they decide, oh no, now we have to stand against it. This shows what? This shows again that topic of reliance, the trust between the people and the Imam of their time was not there. They were just looking at Abu Abdullah Hussein as just one ordinary person, one ordinary member of the community. In which we know in the Shia school of thought, this is not the case, right? Rather, it's completely opposite. Everything we have in the community comes for the Imam al-Ma'sum, right? Everything we have is actually there to be sacrificed and to be given in the support of the Imam al-Ma'sum. Why? Because again, he's the source in which we get all the knowledge and all the divine knowledge from. And he's the source in which we get all the bounties from, right? We have so many riwayahs in which it talks about all the ni'mah, all the blessings of Allah when Imam al-Ma'sum is among a community. Taken from the natural blessings and like ni'mat all the way to spiritual, right? That's why we have a lot of riwayahs, a lot of narrations in which they talk about those who actually murder or kill an Imam al-Ma'sum and how much of severe punishment they have, right? Not only in the hereafter, even in this world. And what effect does it have even on this world as we speak of, right? Because we say Imam al-Ma'sum is the heart of the universe in terms of examples, right? And you can make sort of like a resemblance to it when we look at ourselves. It's like how we understand everything that happens to ourselves immediately. If someone pinches our arm, if someone pinches our leg, if someone pinches part of our body, right? We immediately sense it, right? The whole universe, as we speak of, right? The heart of the universe is the heart of Imam al-Ma'sum. Meaning that everything happening around the globe, around the universe, right? It's constantly going through the heart of Imam al-Ma'sum, right? So at our time, Imam al-Asr wa Zaman, it's the very same equation. And what I say this one, again, we go back, it's not only for our time. Even among the Shias, we had these problems, right? At the time of Imam al-Kazim, at the time of Imam al-Rida alayhi salatu wassalam, we see the same perspective. They were called Shias, they were loyal Shias as well. They just didn't have this understanding of what Imam actually means, right? So actually one of them was a very close companion, right? He had this habit of committing a specific sin, right? And he was hiding it, right? And then one day, one of the other companions, he spots him during committing that specific sin. He tells him, whatever you do not tell Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam, right? What does this indicate? He doesn't know that whatever he does, Imam Musa al-Kazim alayhi salatu wassalam already knows, right? So in our time, whatever we do, our Imam of time, he already knows, he sees, right? It's not like we have to wait until the end of the week or on the day of Friday in which based on the hadith that all of the deeds that we do get sent to Imam al-Mas. No, it's like a live, like live streaming. Everything we do, everything we decide, Imam al-Zaman alayhi salatu wasalam is well aware of it. So if you take this concept out of all of this and we try to like flourish it and we try to nurture it within ourselves, what does it create? It creates this sense of acknowledgement, right? This sense of self-awareness, right? That whatever I want to do I want to make sure that does it have that permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it or not? And it starts from little things. It starts from the very simple ahkam and it continues to grow, right? It continues to grow. We have to say no in some cases, very small cases, and then when the bigger test comes, inshallah, Allah will help us as well. I think our time is a little bit up, so inshallah, we'll continue discussion tomorrow night as well. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Tonight let's talk about another woman of the caravan of Imam al-Hussein who has a very interesting character. When we look at the different families, when we look at the girls within the families, usually there is this girl in every family who speaks out her mind very clearly, who always has these questions and questions and questions. They always tend to be very active and in terms of being very social within the family. So when we look at the children of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, one of her daughter, Bibi Sukaina, she has these characteristics when it comes to the daughter of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So we have it on the last farewell of Imam al-Hussein when he goes back to the tents, as he's saying farewell to the women and to the children. As he tries to come back and he goes back towards the Qatligah, when he gets on his horse, the horse doesn't move. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein looks down and he finds out Bibi Sukaina is standing right in front of the horse. He looks at Bibi Sukaina. He says, "Oh my dear one, what happened? How come you're standing and you're holding up my horse? You're not letting me go." Bibi Sukaina tells Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, "Oh father, not like this. I want you to come down from the horse. I want you to get closer to me." Abu Abdullah al-Hussein gets down from the horse. And then he embraces Bibi Sukaina. And he pets her head and he says, "My dear one, what's going on? What's wrong with you? What happened?" Bibi Sukaina tells his father, says, "Oh father, is this second farewell that means you're not coming back? If it's the second farewell means you're not coming back, oh father, can you take us back to Medina? Can you take us back to Mecca? Can you take us back to our home? Can you make sure that we reach our home safely?" Abu Abdullah al-Hussein sheds some tears and he says, "Oh my dear one, do not break my heart more than this. You know there is no way of me taking you guys back, but I'll give you this glad tidings of being patient and being patient. Oh Bibi Sukaina, do not cry for me yet. You have a long journey ahead of you. Then you have this permission to cry as much as you want." Then Bibi Sukaina raises the second question. He says, "Oh father, when the news of the Shahada, when the news of the martyrdom of Muslim ibn Aqil reached us, what did you do with the orphans of Muslim? You went to them and you told them that you are now their father. They can look up to you as their father. You're going to take care of them. Oh father, I'm going to ask you this one. Once you go, who is going to take care of us? Who is going to take us here and there? Who is going to help us in all of our affairs? Oh father, what are we going to do after you?"
Again, the Abu Abdullah al-Hussein told them, oh, Bibi Sukaina, be patient, be patient. There will be a long journey afterwards. Now let's move forward for a couple of days. Once the caravan of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein reaches the city of Sham, they take him to the palace of Yazid. Now as they are sitting there and all the people have surrounded them and circled around them, all the people, all the commanders, all the generals, and that Yazid is sitting there with the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in a golden tray in front of him. Now one of these guys from Sham, he takes a look at Bibi Sukaina. The minute he lays his eye on the Bibi Sukaina, he says, oh, I want this girl, I want to buy her, I want to purchase her as a slave. Imagine what has happened to the progeny of the Prophet, in which actually people are demanding them or demanding money and giving money for the sake of purchasing them as a slave. Bibi Sukaina goes to Lady Zainab and he embraces Lady Zainab and tells her, oh auntie, I do not want to become a slave of this man. Lady Zainab looks at her and says, don't worry, by Allah, the way of our fate is he will never be able to actually offer money for you. Then Lady Zainab looks at Yazid and says, oh Yazid, how can you tolerate this? Your women and your children are behind the hijab, behind the curtain, and the women and children of Rasulullah are here out in the public, and people are actually looking at them right into the eyes, and not even and more than that, they're actually offering money to purchase them as their slaves. Oh Yazid, how can you go with this? We have it that the majlis became in terms of tranquilance, and then Yazid ordered them to remove all of these chains from the caravan of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and he started reasoning with them a little bit more. But let me talk about a specific farewell tonight. A specific farewell when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was going for the Godal of Qatlaga. At the very last minute when he was landing on the plains of Karbala, there was no companions left, there was no supporter left. As he was waiting and waiting, they came, another 8-year-old, or some say 12-year-old, the Abdullah ibn Hassan, this beloved son of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba. He actually had made this recommendation to Lady Zainab about him. Oh sister, make sure you hold his hand. Oh sister, make sure that you hold on to him tight. You would not let him go. You would not leave him your side. But we have it in Maqata that when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was laying on the plains of Karbala, Lady Zainab heard this harvala from the enemies, and then she went up to the Tal Zainabiyya. She was looking down at the Qatlaga as she saw the body of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein laying on the plains of Karbala. At this time, when Lady Zainab's focus was on Imam al-Hussein, Abdullah ibn Ehsan found the perfect timing. He removed his hand, he pulled away his hand from the hand of Lady Zainab, and he started running towards the Qatlaga. He started running towards his uncle. You have to imagine, he's been brought up by Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. 8 years or 9 years, how big of would he be at the time of he was infant? He was being brought up and nurtured by Imam al-Hussein. He goes towards Imam al-Hussein, he enters the Godal of Qatlaga, but he's about 9-10 years old. What is he going to do against all of this army men? He goes there and he looks at Imam al-Hussein, he sees them, he's laying there without any supporter. Immediately one of the guards comes in and he approaches and he tries to attack Abu Abdullah al-Hussein with his sword. Abdullah takes a look around and says, Wallah, I will not let you hurt my uncle. Wallah, I will defend him with all I have. But what does he have to offer? He raises his hand in a block of a blow of a sword, and you all know what's going the sword do with the hand of a 12-year-old. He actually separates the hand, it lifted flying around by a pair of skin and a little bit of a flesh in it. So as the pain of it, he screams and he falls on the chest of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein looks at him, the looks of mercy. He says, oh Abdullah, don't worry, be patient my son. Be patient my son, it is soon that you will join your father, it will join your grandfather, it will join Lady Fatima al-Zahra. We have it in Maqatil that Harmala took advantage of the time. As he was standing alongside of the Qatlaga, he aimed, but he aimed for the heart of Abdullah ibn Hassan. And he released the arrow went through the heart and pinned Abdullah ibn Hassan to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu wa yanqalibun munqalibun. Allahumma inna nas'aluka wa nad'uk bismika al-azim al-azam al-azz al-ajall al-akram. إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك واكفنا يا قاضي الحاجات إنك كافٍ على محمد. O Allah, hasten the appearance of our Imam Zaman. O Allah, give us the tawfiq and chance of being part of his true companions. O Allah, forgive all of our past sins. O Allah, forgive all of our past ones. O Allah, protect our future and future generations. O Allah, give us the tawfiq of continuing on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. O Allah, we'll ask you humbly to give us the tawfiq of the ziyarat of the Ahlul Bayt in this dunya and their shafa'a intercession in the hereafter. O Allah, we'll ask you to accept this majalis from us and to give some of the rewards of this majalis to the souls of the maraji, of the great scholars and ulama of Islam, and all of the shuhada and all of the past ones of this group. O Allah, we'll ask you humbly, not to take us from this world unless if you are completely satisfied with all of our actions. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein.
Salam to you, Abdullah al-Hasan. 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 The following matam is dedicated to the millions of people who are walking these days to Karbala, to ziyarat of Imam Hussein. 40 days and counting, Karbala we're coming, the lovers of Hussein. Karbala they're coming, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, everyone, Ya Abu Abdullah, 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 Ya Abu His 40th comes and the heavens hear a call, descends on Karbala, each lover an angel. The father leaves behind his wife, children and all. The mother carries the children that barely crawl. Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah. Descends on her dust every nationality, the only language that of lovers of Ali. The fathers tell the son, get dressed and get ready. Forget your nation today, you're Karbala'i, you are Karbala'i. Ya Abu Abdullah, 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 Ya Abu Abdullah. I see a young girl and a flag she is holding. I see a young girl and a flag she is holding. She reminds me of Sakina. I start crying. I see a woman at the roadside, she's standing. I see a woman at the roadside, she's standing. She reminds me of Zainab, for Abbas waiting, for Abbas waiting. Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah. Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah. Upon this road while walking, I learned to listen. Never look back when Hussein's your destination. We're walking because in our eyes he is priceless. We're walking because anything else is worthless. Ya Abu Abdullah, 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 Ya Abu Abdullah. When with the millions on his grave I descend, when with the millions on his grave I descend, I thank Allah and then my salams to you send. The beauty of this walk only you comprehend, and I will return each year until my life's end, and I will return each year until my life's end. Ya Abu Abdullah, 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 Ya Abu Abdullah. Abi Abdullah Hussein, Hussein, Abi Abdullah Hussein, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah Hussein, Hussein, Abi Abdullah, 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 son of Mustafa, Hussein, Hussein, son of Mustafa, son of Murtaza, son of Murtaza, son of Fatima, son of Fatima. Abi Abdullah, Hussein, Hussein, Abi Abdullah, call him. Abi Abdullah, Hussein, Hussein, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah, Abi Abdullah. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Imagine yourself standing in Bain al-Haramain and saying salam to Imam Hussein. As-salamu ala al-Husayn. وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا أبا الفضل العباس ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي باغر علم النبي، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي أيها الجواد التقي، السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري، السلام عليك يا صاحب الزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه، وعجل الله تعالى فرجك، وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من خير أعوانك وانصارك والمستشهدين بين يديك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته، وإلى الأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات، رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات.